Hi everybody, this is Teresa from Tease Toppers. Today I actually am going to do a tutorial and walk you through how to do this crocheting cloth that I designed. It's actually a super easy pattern. It just uses double crochet stitches and skip stitches to create the letters here. So let's get started. So what you're going to require for this pattern is one skein of this Bernard Handicrafter cotton. Okay, you only need about 50 yards of this yarn, and you also will need your 5mm H crochet hook. Oops, that's upside down. Okay, so those two things, and we can get started. Now, if you just want to get your yarn on your hook, this is how I start mine. Okay, just put it in between and give it a pull. Okay. And now we want to chain 35. Okay. Just like that. Yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through. Okay, so if you chain 35, and I'll meet you back here. So now we want to create this bottom couple rows and these nice open holes for the bottom of our cloth. Okay, so what you want to start doing now is you want to double crochet into the 5th stitch from the hook, or your 5th chain stitch. Okay, so I always flip my work over, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to double crochet into that 5th hump right there. So yarn over, and I'm going to go through that stitch. Okay. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through my last 2. This creates our double crochet here, and our chain 1 for our skip stitch, and then our next double crochet. Okay, and so now we want to chain 1. We want to skip our next stitch and double crochet into the next one. So again, yarn over, put your hook into your stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through your last 2. Okay, again, chain 1, skip your next stitch, and double crochet into your next one there. Yarn over, go into your stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so you want to continue that all the way across. Okay, so skip a stitch and then double crochet. So chain 1, skip a stitch, and then double crochet into your next stitch. And I'll meet you guys at the end. So at the end of this row, you should have 17 double crochet stitches across, or 33 stitches altogether. And that is including your chain 2 at the very end to turn. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to chain 3 at the end here. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to turn our work. And so I'm going to basically repeat this process across here. So I'm going to skip the first 3 chains, 1, 2, 3. I'm also going to skip this first stitch and this one here, and I'm going to double crochet into this stitch right above your last one. Okay, so yarn over, go through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through your last 2. Okay, now we're just repeating the process. We're going to chain 1, we're going to skip this stitch and go into our next one right above the other double crochet stitch. Okay, yarn over, go into your stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through your last 2. And then if you could just repeat that all the way to the end, and I'll meet you at the end here. So remember, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet all the way to the very end. Okay guys, so I'm at the end of the row now. So now I'm just going to chain my last stitch, and I'm going to do my last double crochet stitch. So I am going to skip this stitch, and I'm going to do my last double crochet stitch into the chain 2, the top of the chain 2 here, okay? So double crochet and go into your stitch, okay? Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through your last 2. There we go. Now we're going to chain 2 only. Okay, and then we're going to turn our work. And we want to double crochet all the way across now, okay? But what I do is I skip our first 2 stitches. I skip this stitch that's right there, and I work into the next stitch here. So the 4th one over, okay? So just yarn over, and you want to start double crocheting all the way across. There we go. So go ahead, and I'll meet you guys at the end. So just go ahead and double crochet all the way across the top of your stitches. There you go. And then I'll meet you guys at the end. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the row, and so I have my last 2 double crochets to do. So I'm gonna again double crochet, and I'm gonna just double crochet into the first stitch, which was our skip stitch, and then I'm gonna double crochet into the top of the chain 2 for the next stitch. Okay, and then we just want to chain up 2 again and turn. Now you should have 33 double crochet stitches running across here. Okay, so now we just want to do another row of double crochets all the way across. And again, you want to skip your first 2 chain 2 stitches. Skip this first stitch because that's where that one is, and work into your 4th one over here, okay? Right directly across the next, on top of the next double crochet stitch. Okay, so I'm skipping that one, and I'm going right into the top of the next double crochet stitch. Okay, and so you should end up with 33 across, including your chain 2 stitch over here, okay? So go ahead and do another row of double crochets. Okay, so I'm almost at the end again, and I have my last 2 stitches. So this one goes directly over top of that stitch. Okay, and my very last stitch goes in the top of the chain 2 stitch here. Okay, there we go. Double crochet there. Now we're going to chain up 2 more, and we're going to turn and do one more final row of the double crochet stitches. So that gives us this nice part before we start on our letters. Okay, so if you go ahead and you do your last row of double crochet stitches, remember you skip your first 2 chains, your first stitch, don't go into that one, go into your next one that's directly over top of the other double crochet stitch over there, okay? So go ahead and get this last row done before we start on our words, and I'll meet you at the end. Remember, you're always doing your last stitch in the top of your chain 2. Okay guys, so we're at the end of the row, and I made sure to double crochet in my chain 2 stitch. Okay, so now we want to chain up 2, and that's considered our first stitch, and then we want to double crochet into the next 4. So skipping 1, 2, skipping that stitch and working into that one. So double crochet into our next 4 stitches, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we want to chain 1. We want to skip our next stitch and double crochet into our next stitch. Okay, you see we have our hole. So now we want to do 2 more double crochet stitches. 1, 2. Okay, now we want to chain 1 again, skip our next stitch, and go into our next one. There we go. We have the bottom of our K so far. Okay. So now we're going to do one more double crochet stitch. We have those two. I'm going to chain one, skip a stitch, and go into our next stitch. And again, chain one, skip a stitch, and go into our next stitch. Okay, and then we're going to do two more double crochet stitches. One, two. Then we want to chain one, skip our next stitch, and double crochet into our next stitch. Chain one, skip our next stitch, and double crochet into our next stitch. Okay, so now you want to do 5 more double crochet stitches. So you have 6 altogether, right next to each other. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you want to chain one, skip your next stitch, and double crochet into your next stitch. Okay, and then you want to double crochet into your last 4. 1, 2, 3, and making sure your double crochet goes in the top of that chain 2, 4. And now you can see there's the beginning of your word. Okay, so for our next row, we want to chain up 2, and that's considered your first stitch. Turn your work, okay, and you're going to double crochet into your next 4. Remember, skip your first 2, skip that 1 stitch, and go in directly above your next double crochet stitch. Okay, so let's get 4 in here. It's 2, 3, 4. Now you want to chain 1, skip this stitch, and go into your next stitch. Okay, now you're going to double crochet into your next 5 stitches. No, next 4 stitches, sorry. So let's do 4 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, there we go. So we'll chain 1 now, skip our next stitch, and go into our next stitch. Okay, and then we want to do 2 more double crochet stitches. Okay, chain 1, skip our next stitch, and go into the next one. Okay, so you have 3, your skip stitch. Okay, and then chain 1, skip your next stitch, go into the next stitch. You want to do 2 more double crochets. Chain 1, skip stitch, go into your next stitch. Okay, chain 1, skip stitch, and go into your next stitch again. And do 1 more double crochet. Oops, didn't finish that one. Do one more double crochet. Okay, need more yarn. Okay, so there you want to chain one, skip stitch, and go into your next stitch again. Okay, and now you want to double crochet in your last few stitches here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and in the top of your chain stitch 5. Okay, so 5 more double crochet stitches. 4 and 5. And now we're done our second row of the letters. Okay, so now we're moving up to row 3 of our letters. Okay, and so we're just going to chain 2 and turn our work around. Okay, so your chain 2 is your first stitch, and now we want to double crochet into our next 5 stitches. Okay, so skipping your first chain 2 and your first stitch and going into that one directly above your next double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now you want to chain 1, skip your next stitch, and go into your next stitch. Okay, there you see we have our K being made. Do one more double crochet right next to it. Just 1 second. So just going into this next stitch. Okay, there we go. We have our 2, chain 1, skip a stitch, which is that one, go into our next stitch. Okay, chain 1, skip one more stitch, go into our next stitch. Now we want to do 2 more double crochets. 1, 2, okay, sorry. Okay, chain 1, skip the next stitch and go into our next stitch. Chain 1, skip our next stitch and go into our next stitch. Do 2 more double crochet stitches. Okay, chain 1, skip our next stitch and go into our next stitch. Now we want to do 4 more double crochet stitches. 3, 4, chain 1, skip our next stitch, and double crochet into our last 4. There we go. And we are now done our next row. So you can see the letters are starting to form. There's the F, the U, the C, and the K. Okay. Okay, here's row 4. Chain up 2, turn your work, and double crochet in the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, chain 1, skip a stitch, and double crochet into your next stitch. Get more yarn. Okay, so we're again going to chain 1 and skip the next stitch and double crochet into our next stitch. Okay, then we want to do 2 more double crochet stitches. Two more. Okay, and then chain 1, skip our next stitch and double crochet into our next stitch. And then, oops, do 2 more double crochet stitches. There we go. Chain 1, skip our next stitch, double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1, skip our next stitch, and double crochet into our next stitch. Okay, now we want to double crochet 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to chain 1, skip our next stitch, double crochet into our next stitch, chain 1, skip our next stitch and double crochet into our next stitch, and then you want to double crochet into your last, I believe it's 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so let's double crochet into our last 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 into the top of the chain 2. There you have your next row done. So now we're just going to chain 2 and turn our work again. Okay, so now you can see the right side of the letters coming. Okay, so we want to double crochet into our next 6 stitches. So skip your first 2 and this stitch and go into this one. Okay, so double crochet here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 6. Okay, chain 1, skip stitch, and double crochet into your next one. Okay, whoops. Chain 1, skip another stitch, and double crochet into your next stitch. Just make sure I'm on the right one. Yep. Okay, double crochet into your next 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet into your next one, chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet into your next one, double crochet in your next 2, chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet into your next stitch. Okay, and then you're going to double crochet into your next 4. 1, 2, 3, oops, missed that one, and 4, Okay, chain 1, skip your next stitch, double crochet into your next stitch. And here you're going to double crochet into your last 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the top of your chain 2. It's always tricky to get that one in. All right. If you can see the letters now, the F is coming, the U, the C, and the K. Okay, so chain 2, turn your work, and double crochet into your next 4 stitches. Okay, missing that first stitch, going into that one. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oops. Oh my. More yarn again. Okay, and now you want to chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into your next stitch, and double crochet into your next 4. There's number 4. Chain 1, skip your next stitch, double crochet into your next stitch, and then double crochet into your next 2. Chain 1, skip your next stitch, double crochet into your next stitch, chain 1, skip your next stitch again, double crochet into your next stitch. Oops, little knot there. Okay, so now double crochet into your next 2 more stitches. Okay, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into your next stitch, chain 1, skip your next stitch, double crochet into your next stitch, double crochet into your next stitch again, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into your next stitch, and then double crochet into your last 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. On to our last row for our letters. Okay, so chain 2 and turn. Turn our work. Let's get this last row done. Okay, let's get this row started. So remember, skip the first one, and you're going to start in the second stitch here, and you want to do 4 double crochets across, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you have 5, including your chain 2. Now you want to chain 1, skip your next stitch, and double crochet into your next stitch. Then you're going to double crochet into your next 2 stitches. Okay, now you want to chain 1, skip your next stitch, and double crochet into your next stitch. And then 1 more double crochet into the next stitch. Okay, so now you want to chain 1 and skip your next stitch again and double crochet into the next one. Okay, so now I'm going to do that one more time. Just let me double check. You have 2, chain 1, okay, yep, chain 1, skip your stitch, double crochet into your next stitch, and then double crochet again into the next stitch. Now chain 1, skip the next stitch, and double crochet into the next stitch. And now 2 more double crochets. Okay, now chain 1, skip your next stitch, and double crochet into your next stitch. Chain 1, skip your next stitch, double crochet into your next stitch. Chain 1, skip your next stitch, double crochet into your next stitch. And chain 1, skip your next stitch, and double crochet into your next stitch. Finally, you're going to double crochet into your last 4 stitches, your last one being the top of the chain 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you go. Now we have your word done. And you'll be able to see it better once we do the next 3 rows. And the next 3 rows are going to be just like these rows were right here with your double crochet stitches across. All right, so now we want to just chain 2, turn our work, and we want to double crochet all the way across, and that will give us 33 double crochets, including your chain 2 stitch here. So again, you're skipping your first chain 2s, your first stitch, and you're making sure that you're going into your first double crochet is into that first double crochet stitch there. Okay, so again, just double crochet, and now just double crochet across the entire row. Okay, so now I'm at the end of the row, and I have my last 2 stitches to do to get me to 33. So I'm going to double crochet, and then double crochet into that final chain 2 stitch. Okay, and then chain up 2, turn our work. Okay, so now you can see the word a little bit better now that we have those full stitches on there. And now we're going to just repeat that same row all over again and double crochet all the way across again, and then I'll meet you at the end, making sure that your first double crochet stitch goes on top of that first stitch, not in the stitch beside it, and making sure that your last double crochet stitch goes in your very first in the chain 2 stitch. Okay, so I will meet you across at the end of the row again. Okay, so we're now back at our final 2 stitches again. So just double crocheting those last 2 stitches and being sure to double crochet into the top of the chain 2 at the end. That way it keeps our lines, our sides all lined up all the way across. Okay, now chain 2, turn your work again, and we're going to do our last row of double crochets across the top of this cloth. Okay, so again, working into the top of the first double crochet stitch right there. So double crochet in there, double crochet all the way across to the end, and I'll meet you back there. Okay, so we're at the end again, and just again double crocheting in our last 2 stitches. Okay, and making sure to get in the top of the chain 2. Okay, so now here we want to create the top part of our cloth with the little holes across again. So this is really simple. So this time, instead of chaining 2 up, we're going to chain 3, because it's going to be your double crochet stitch and your chain 1 stitch for your skip stitch. Okay, So now we turn our work, and again, we're not going to double crochet into this first stitch because we're actually going to skip that stitch. So we've chained one, and we want to work our next double crochet into this stitch over here in your second double crochet stitch, okay? So go ahead and double crochet there. Now chain one, skip your next double crochet, and double crochet into the next one. And that's what we're going to do all the way across. Now we're just going to repeat chain one, skip stitch, double crochet into your next stitch. Now skip chain one, then skip stitch, and double crochet into your next stitch. So if you just want to do that all the way across, I'll meet you at the end. So here we are at the end. So you can see I have my last stitch left and then my chain two. So in your last one, you're going to make sure the chain one, skip that last stitch, and double crochet into your chain two stitch. And that row is done. Now chain up three, turn your work, and we're going to repeat this one more time, okay? So this one's a little bit easier to see because now you're just going to go on top of it every single one of the double crochets, and that's where you're going to work your stitch. So we've got our chain three, and we're going to work our next double crochet into the top of that double crochet stitch there. Now chain one, skip your next stitch, double crochet into that double crochet stitch. Okay, chain one, skip your next stitch, and double crochet into the top of that next stitch. Okay, so you just want to repeat that all the way to the end of that row. Okay, so we're at the end of the row. Again, we have just our skip stitch and our chain two. So chain one, and then double crochet into the top of the chain two stitch. Okay, so if you flip over your work, you can see your cloth is all done now. However, if you want to, I'll show you, you can add a border like I did in this one. Okay, so if you want to, you can go ahead and single crochet all the way around. I actually worked 2 rows of single crochet, working the second row only in the back loops to give it the little extra texture in the top, and making sure to put 3 single crochet stitches in each corner. So it's up to you if you want to do that. Just be sure that if you are going to do your border stitch, I prefer that I turn my work facing me, facing the right way, so that you're working on your right side, because if you're going to do the 2 rows, then you're going to see that texture in the stitch more so than you would see it in if you did it on the back end of it, okay? So just make sure that if you're going to do this, that you work, I'll chain up 1 first, and then I'll work 3 single crochet stitches in the corner stitch, 2, and 1 more single crochet in the corner stitch, and then just in each stitch all the way across, you want to work 1 single crochet stitch all the way across in each one of your stitches, okay? And then when you get to the next side, the next corner, again, you want to work 3 single crochet stitches into that corner stitch. Oops, not double crochets. Single crochet stitches all the way across. Okay, so just work single crochets all the way across your corner. In that corner stitch, work 3 single crochet stitches. Roughly, you're going to work roughly 28 stitches across the side. And when you get to the corner again, 3 single crochet stitches all the way around until you're back at the beginning again. And then when I do this next round, if you want to do 2 rounds of your stitches, then I'll just work in the back loop only for the second round, so that I have that little hump that's going to be in the front, and then that way it just provides a nice little detailed finish. Right. Well, I certainly hope that you guys enjoyed making this cloth today. I certainly did. And I hope that this tutorial will help you create many more of them. And that if you had struggles with the written pattern, that this might actually help you be able to complete them a little bit better. Okay, if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know and I'd be happy to help you. And if you like this video, please make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel so I can keep giving you more. Thank you guys. Have a fantastic day, and I hope you enjoy creating this cursing cloth. Bye.